Okay, this is a little short story that I wrote called The Commute by Peter Trott. A late November night, cold, damp, foggy. Driving home through the murky darkness on country roads was beginning to feel like the end of the world was just around the next fog-shrouded, close-hedged bend. This commute was one of the worst he'd ever experienced, not just because of the foul weather, but because of the even more frightening news he had received earlier in the day that had smashed its way into his world, his family, his future, what there was left of it. A very nasty Christmas indeed. A family man with a loving wife and 2 kids, twins, both at the still believing in Santa age of 5. The perfect family. At 35, looking forward to a full life with his family. Next year's holiday, 2 weeks in Tenerife, already booked. Promotion in the offing, promising extra money to make life just that little bit easier. Now the bombshell had hit. His comfortable life shattered by today's news. The big C. Lung cancer. Burning into his consciousness like sun through a magnifying glass, but still not really hearing the words. It was just an estimate. The consultant could only guess the rate of growth, change, spread. Somewhere between 6 and 12 months. Months, not years. A small white crack in the pale blue wall of the surgery, like a tiny bolt of lightning, filled his mind. The question, why me? Surfacing in his mind and blurting itself out to the consultant. The straight answer? No one really knows why an individual succumbs to cancer. Mostly it's just chance with genetics and lifestyle thrown in. No history in the family, a non-smoker, and his wife had always been careful about what the family ate. He was relatively fit and had never taken a day off work due to sickness. Why me? The question now filling his head, the horror of what was to come at the very front of his mind. This was not his usual route. How was he going to break the news to his family? What was he going to tell the kids? Mind-whirling, fog-curling, road-bending, speed too fast, bend misjudged, sudden realisation, braking hard, wet road sliding uncontrolled into the hedge, airbags exploding, windows smashing. Finally, coming to a juddering halt. At least he'd survived, was his first coherent thought after movement stopped and the noise abated. Survived, for now at least. Phone home. His second rational thought, finding the phone still attached to its mount, the battery dead. But how could that be? It was guiding him home just a few minutes ago. Dragging himself out of the car, quickly checking it over. Fortunately, there seemed to be only superficial damage. The broken window, a few crumpled and scratched panels. That'll be expensive. Why am I worried? This car will outlive me. Somehow managing to reverse the car from the hedge, he carried on through the cold, miserable night. Moving slowly now along the narrow road, being ultra careful. Was that a lightening of the gloom ahead? A hint of a glowing lamp? Coming closer, the light morphing into, unbelievably, a small, yellow-lit shop. A shop out here in the middle of the countryside? It had to be a mirage. Perhaps he'd taken a knock to the head in the crash. No, shop it most definitely was. Now just a few metres ahead. Slowing the car to a crawl, he approached what was now clearly a tobacconist. A tobacconist? He thought they'd all gone the way of all the small individual shops and been consumed by the big chains years ago. But no, here it was, a tobacconist shop in the middle of nowhere. Bringing the car to a stop, he stared stupidly through the windscreen at this unlikely illusion, for that was surely what it was. Walking hesitantly through the swirling fog towards the illusion, he realised he hadn't remembered getting out of the car or why. He was just drawn towards the shop, approaching the front door, noticing the faded, time-worn paint on the wood-framed windows, brightly lit on the ground floor, whilst above, the darkened first-floor windows looked like sightless eyes. Apprehensively, He opened the door. The inside belied the worn, tatty exterior, being pleasantly warm, bright, and certainly well maintained. Seeing the small, highly polished counter, feeling like an interloper into someone's personal space, he was curious to find out more about the place. Looking around at the shelves stacked with smoking paraphernalia, covering the walls, pipes, cleaning tools, lighters, tobacco pouches, cigarette cases, cigar boxes were everywhere. Cigars under glass cases, racks of cigarettes behind glass doors. The shop was a veritable Aladdin's cave if you were a smoker. Wandering around the small space in front of the counter, he wondered how a shop like this could possibly have survived the legal challenges of recent years and the reduction in smoking by the general public population, let alone it being in the middle of the deepest countryside. The noise of a chair sliding on the wooden floor startled him. Movement behind the counter, a head slowly appearing from beneath the countertop. The feeling that he shouldn't be here only slowly dissipating as a recognisably human head rose to reveal an impossibly ancient man. Wispy greying hair thinning, nearly white, and a scruffy grey beard. His wizened, dark face, covered with deep wrinkles etched into his skin like the bark of an oak tree. "Can I help you?" he asked, thin lips hardly moving. Nervously he replied, I've had a problem with my car and ran off the road a short way back. Sorry to bother you, I just saw your light and—" "You just had to stop. Was that right?" interrupted the old man. "Something like that," he replied. "Perhaps I can assist you." "No, I don't really think so. The car is drivable. I just—" "I don't mean assist you with your car. I mean assist you." This last word almost screeching from his crooked mouth. "Are you a smoker?" He replied, "No, never." What was it that attracted him to the shop? What did this little man mean by assist you? Watching the man straining to reach up to the high shelf, his withered arm stretching out above him, it was amazing that this little old chap could manage to retrieve anything from such a height. A packet of cigarettes seeming to float in the air between the two men. In fact, being held there in the old man's claw-like hand. "Try these," he coughed, a small drip of spittle foaming at the corner of his mouth. Initially recoiling in alarm from being offered cigarettes, and raising both hands palms towards the man, he managed to repeat that he was not and never had been a smoker. "Try these," repeated the ancient shopkeeper, this time in a stronger, more menacing voice. Hands lowering, leaning forward, taking the packet, feeling the cellophane cover, suddenly a light feeling in his chest, opening the packet, removing one of the cork-tipped white cylinders and placing it in his mouth. All this without conscious thought. He was just reacting to the commanding nature of the old man's voice. Flicking in front of him, an old-fashioned flip-top lighter appearing, flame lancing upwards, lighting the end of the cigarette, sucking in the smoke. Then a racking cough. He couldn't believe what had happened. Attempting to stub out the cigarette, but feeling a very strong hand on his wrist. Surely this could not be the old man's hand, his fingers, though wraith-thin and wiry, easily holding his wrist. "You must smoke the whole cigarette," the man's reedy voice commanded, "and you must smoke one every day. Only one, no more, no less, and do not forget." Coughing and wheezing, he smoked the cigarette in a couple of minutes, with the shopkeeper holding his wrist throughout, finishing the cigarette, staggering, still coughing, to his car, lights on, engine still running. Get away urgently from this shop of horrors, and the ghastly man were his only thoughts. In gear, wheels spinning on the car, lurching forward, rounding the bend, the shop disappearing behind into the foggy darkness, as though it had never existed. Reaching home, later than usual, his wife asked about his lateness, and he told her the whole story. About coming across the strange shop, with the unnerving old man urging the cigarettes on him. His wife suggesting he should throw them into the bin before he could attempt to smoke any more of them, and him stopping her, becoming aggravated and angry towards her. She pulling away and hurrying from this strangely changed man, filling the next few moments with domestic chores and preparing something for their evening meal. She was suddenly scared. Scared of her own husband. The morning. The commute to the office once again. After just a few minutes, the coughing also began, as it had every day for several months. His thoughts going to the pack of the curiously remarkable cigarettes in his pocket, hand moving inexorably to the pocket, extracting the pack, lighting the white tube with the car's inbuilt lighter, taking a long pull, filling his lungs with smoke. The coughing subsiding, a tranquillity descending upon him. He relaxed into driving the car, arriving at work, feeling more awake and ready for the day than he had for many months. The new daily pattern of life continued through the next week. Commuting, smoking just one each day, no more, no less, as the elderly shopkeeper had ordered. Visiting the consultant once more for further checks and assessment. Another shop. It's remarkable. Amazing, in fact. It's gone. Not a trace. The cancer in your lungs has completely disappeared. I've never seen anything like this before. Ever. He was elated. Somehow he was cured, or at least in complete remission. He was stunned, unbelieving, rushing home to tell his wife. Taking the same route as previously, he thought of the peculiar tobacconist's shop. Leapt into his head. Watching the road, surely this must be near where it had been. Nothing. No shop. No tobacconist. Just hedgerows and farmland as far as he could see. Was this the same road? Consulting the sat-nav, yes, this was where the shop should have been. He slowed and stopped the car, getting out to look over the hedge still. Nothing. The shop had disappeared. Or perhaps had never really been there. Later at home, his wife couldn't believe the news. Nor could she believe his tale of the disappearing tobacconists. It must be his fantasy. Why the cigarettes, though? Why was this old man so insistent he might assist you? Taking out the pack, he could see that despite having smoked several, the pack was still full. Staring at him from the pack, the 20 thin white cylinders accusing him of something. No, they couldn't possibly be the reason his lungs were now free of the vicious disease. That was just too much to believe. He threw the whole pack into the open fire in the living room. Let that be an end of it. Ghostly shops, weird old men, bizarre cigarettes, the whole unbelievable story. He was cured. They couldn't have had anything to do with it. Could they? Watching the flames eagerly consuming the cigarette pack, he was sure, absolutely sure, smoking just could not cure cancer. Could it? Next morning, kissing his wife just like any normal morning and driving to work, his normal commuting route to the office. But there was the tobacconist. The same one. In a different place. Impossible. Fleetingly, the face of the ancient shopkeeper looking out from one of the first floor windows, staring at him. Swerving, nearly leaving the road, struggling to regain control of the car, coughing, breathing hoarsely, pain suddenly rising in his chest, hacking cough, spraying a fine mist of blood onto the windscreen, rising fear, clutching at him, straining at the wheel, strength leaving his arms, hands, the windscreen shattering as the branches of a tree scythe through, the car coming to rest at last. The emergency services took a while to reach the scene. His wrecked car was so far off the road. The paramedic doctor couldn't understand why he was driving at all, considering the very advanced state of the cancer he was suffering from. Thank you.